Hi. Thank you very much. I see the smart people stayed here. Everybody else left. So I used to work with this guy who characterized Hispanic people as happy people who like to dance. And I think he was right. Every once in a while when I'm very happy, then I'll shake something. And so if you see me dancing a little bit on stage, then don't be surprised. It's just how happy I am to be here and how incredible this event has been so far. Is great people. The agenda has been really good. The content has been incredible. And so to the organizers, thank you. I know it's a lot of work, and I know they haven't had much time to sleep, and so thank you. Good stuff. I'm here to talk about innovation applied to market research, and we have seen several industries skyrocket in innovation, embrace it really, and do very well. I want to cite two examples, two of my favorite. I love music, so I've seen music go from very bulky, very heavy, in fragile LPs through cassettes that still were bulky and were somewhat fragile, through CDs and ultimately MP3s. And there's not much fragile about MP3s in that format, or they're not bulky at all. Same with, and I think this is super incredible what these guys have done with innovation in this area. Healthcare, using your genetic code to understand what medicine works really well for you and what quantity of it. So today, by studying an individual's genetic code, we can tell what amount of medicine is right for that person for that illness. And again, that's innovation at its best. I'll be talking about innovation specifically as it relates to the new path to purchase. And I'd like to invite everybody here on a journey into that space, and let's do a couple of market research projects mentally. And I'm not going to do numbers. Let's use our imagination. Let's start with online, e-commerce. E-commerce has a very specific characteristic of being connected by a wire. Everything that happens within e-commerce has a wire associated with it. There's data traveling through that wire, and that data is easy to consume, easy to capture, easy to use. So these guys, within e-commerce, we have had, the fastest evolution of market research. There's tools like Google Analytics, like social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, online surveys, and even yesterday I heard a lot of presentations on emotion and how to use that understanding to improve our brands and products in our stores. So let's do the first project. Let's think about, I own a shoe store. And my shoe store is doing really well, but this supplier offered me the opportunity to add this new shoe. Very jazzy, very interesting, but I think I'm not sure about how it fits with the rest of my inventory. So I want to try it first. And I want to measure the impact. I want to try it in a subset of my consumers, of my shoppers. And I want to get a sense for how that new shoe would impact my sales and ultimately my store. So I use Google Analytics, and through Google Analytics I'm going to find out, I'm going to learn, I probably should know these, where my shoppers are coming from geographically, what kind of people they are, ages, genders. We know a lot about shoppers today through GA. We know how long they spend or how much time they spend on my store. We know how much time they look at each one of the products. We know what products go into the baskets, which ones come out of the baskets, and substitutions. And so we know a lot of stuff about them. We're going to use GA, and we're going to select a subset, probably the people who are more open to different products. Again, jazzy shoes, it's going to be a gamble. And I don't want to make a long-term commitment to the supplier unless I know that there's going to be a good benefit for me and that I'm going to increase my sales overall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hire some market research firm, or I'm going to use some market research talent, And then I'm going to create a campaign and target these small subset of my customers that consume this kind of product, are more open to new products. And I'm going to ask them to react to advertising that, or analyze the reaction to advertising that's going to be targeted specifically to this group of people. Some of those of my consumers, my shoppers, are going to react directly. They'll email me, they'll call me. Maybe we have a relationship already. Some of them are going to use Twitter, Facebook. I doubt LinkedIn, but at least Twitter, Facebook, maybe Tumblr, and they're going to comment about the new product. And if I did a good job at advertising this, then I'll create some amount of reaction, and I'll capture that using some big data tool, fancy name, and I'll use that, and I'll apply the sentiment analysis on top of it, and I'll understand what kind of reaction I'm getting. And on top of that, for the people who remained engaged, I'm going to ask them to answer a survey after they buy the shoes. So I'm going to get, again, I'm going to get a good amount of direct reaction that's going to tell me a lot about the product. I'm going to get a good amount of information from all the social media that I'm participating within. And then I'm going to consolidate that through big data, get a reaction, apply sentiment analysis to it, and get the results from the online survey. A lot of information, but for sure I'm going to make a right decision. I'm going to know what, how my customers in general are going to react to this new product, and I'm going to be able to make a good commitment to my supplier. Great story. Online e-commerce has it very easy. Not the same for physical stores. Physical stores have the challenge of not being connected through wires. They have a bunch of wires, but not the same kind of wire. And the data is not captured the same way. It's hard to consume, and most of the time we see people standing and collecting data, and I mean, it's not really not, cannot compare to the evolution that e-commerce has had. So several companies have started working on catching up the offline retail side of things. And we have seen, I don't know how many of us, but I'm sure several of us have worked with the glasses that tell you what people are looking at. And those apply really well to projects where you're testing packaging and you kind of want to keep things private. Same with the virtual stores. You can browse the store, you can see what people are looking at, you can interact with the product, and it gives you a sense for how things could be in the real store. Little, very specific use in my opinion, but very exciting. Cell phones are used today, smartphones, to follow people around, get a sense for traffic, and again, interesting. And I already talked about the online surveys, so I'll skip that. I like to invite you to a second market research project. And in this case, we're going to use my technology, Shopperception's technology. We based our product on sensors, on motion sensors. MS Kinect is an example of it. We're really not dependent on Microsoft Kinect, but that's one of the sensors we use. And in this particular, by the way, through those sensors, we capture, I'm not supposed to be salesy, but I'll give you the pitch in 30 seconds or less. We're supposed to capture the entire story. We're supposed to capture everything that goes on the aisle, and that we see every interaction for every shopper during the entire process of monitoring. And there's no human intervention. It's all done automatically in the store, real store. So anyways, let's do a market research project here. And in this case, I'm a category manager, and I have a top performer in the category, yet the sales are not reflecting that. So I want to know why, and I want to correct it. And my first reaction is, after seeing the stores, is that there's probably a problem with the facing. So I want to go and change the facing, maybe add some signage to it, and then get people oriented as they're navigating the category. So again, engage market research. In this case, we're going to use Shopperception. And what we're going to do is, the first week, we're going to baseline. Again, real store. So we selected a store, right? And we're going to baseline. We're going to baseline two main metrics. Conversion rate, which is the people who are just going through the aisle, and then they see something they like, and then they engage with the category. That's conversion rate. And the second one is time to first interaction. The time it took me as a shopper from the moment I enter the category to the moment I grab or interact with the first product. Those two metrics. There's many more metrics, but we're going to use those two. First week of baseline, and it's going to give us a heat map. And we're going to know, wow, look, most of the activity is over here. So we can make some decisions about the facing right away and test it. Test it in the store, real time, with real people who don't know that we're testing. By the way, no violation of privacy. This is less data than video surveillance cameras are already capturing, so there's no concern about that. And it's real data. There's no video going anywhere. It's just the data is created there. So we make some changes to the screen, to the facing, and based on that heat map. And we know that obviously the obvious thing is face level. But then we also know that it's a little bit to the right in this case, this layout of the store. Make some other changes because we know the product traction. We know what products are picked up before mine and which ones are picked up after mine because we can tell the whole story. Make some corrections, adjustments, and we make some assumptions and run the second week. Capture more data, understand what happened, and fine-tune it. And we do one more week and see the result of that fine-tuning. At the end of it, at the end of the third week, we add the signs, engagement, help people navigate the store, the category. And after we add the signs, we measure one more week. And that tells us that we got conversion rate where we wanted. We got time to first interaction where we wanted. So we're ready to go to the retailer and tell them that we have sufficient evidence that this new layout, this new facing, this new planogram is going to be much more effective than what we have today. The retailer probably will take a little bit of conversations to convince, but ultimately we're going to be able to increase sales for everybody, and that's going to be the incentive for them. And then we are going to help our top performer come up the level in the category. I want to show you a little video of that kind of shows the example I was using. And as you can see, there's, by the way, this is in the real setting, but it's an actor. So you can see how as the actor is touching the product, then we can see how on the product itself, we can see where the contact is. And then that generates data about the actual activity, the actual interaction, a pickup, a return, and so forth. Those pictures are so that I can make the point. Those pictures don't need to exist. It's just a capability that helps deliver the message, especially I have an accent, so it's, I got to rely on pictures a little bit more. And ultimately, here's this is more scientific, I guess. This is how we divide space, three-dimensional space, to understand what's going on there. So again, at the end of the project, we're going to know exactly what happened, and we're going to know what triggered those changes, and we're going to have a good information that's accurate that we can go to a retailer and validate our assumptions. I got to stop for questions, but I like to stay with the, oh, by the way, this technology, all this innovation track makes me really happy, so I'll just do a little bit of a dance to close it, and I'll leave you with it. I hope we can stay in touch. Let's have the conversation. If we don't have time for questions now, feel free to reach out, and we'll keep talking.
I think we do have time for a couple of questions here, if anybody has a question in the audience. Right over here. Can we get a mic? Do we have a mic?
My question to you is, you capture everything that's going on in the aisle. How about those shoppers that go to point of purchase and decide to take it out of their shopping cart and go with something else because they saw something, a competitor more visible? So in other words, the rejection rate, and why are they doing that?
That's a great question. So obviously there are some limitations. We like to think that because this technology is unlimited, we can tell that the shopper put the product back as long as the shopper returns the product within the category that we're monitoring. If I take the product and leave it by the cash register, then there's no way to know. The good thing is that we can also add surveys at the end of the interaction so that we can ask that shopper why the shopper returned the product. So for instance, I come into the category, I pick up a product, look at it, put it back, and then the system knows that all of this is happening. So it can trigger a survey on a digital sign at the end of the aisle, and we can try to get the shopper attention and answer the survey. And that can help us add more context to the data, add more answers to it. Great question. Thank you.
You can follow shopping through the entire store. You've got the store cameras enough to see a full path.
We can follow shoppers in this entire store. I would say that for that particular case, I would add some cell phone tracking software, because we are very effective in terms of monitoring categories, but then the ROI on extending all the entire store, it depends on the size of the store too, may not be as good. And I'm just trying to be completely transparent. I would say a combination of something that tracks cell phone with our technology is probably the more suitable way to do this. A great question. Thank you.
I think at that we better stop.
Out of time?
Yeah, out of time. Thank you, Alfonso.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.